your opponent. It's all about the Packers at the moment. Alex, it's time for Know Your Opponent.
Know your opponent, indeed. Cutback crew getting excited, getting live. They're ready to go. Say, hey, how y'all doing? This is always a fun one. Know your opponent. Get to talk with other people, right? Outside perspective about the 49ers, but also an inside perspective at the opponent that we got coming up. Getting a little bit of a deeper dive, deeper look, and a non-biased opinion of the opponent that we're going up against this week, week 3. It's a big one. It's the Green Bay Packers, and it's a gentleman that we're extremely familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked to him before, a huge Green Bay fan, and luckily we've gotten to bring him in and get into this conversation. It's going to be very good. I am looking forward to it. I can't wait to hear what Tyler Menting has to say.
Oh, man, this is exciting. This is a good one. We got our boy Tyler Menting from Football Unlocked. Tyler, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Ask me after Sunday night, but I'm doing good.
Yeah, it was funny because we kind of talked about maybe you would come back for the Packers game, and you are back. I'm wondering if your thought process has changed from then when you were completely not happy about this game. Are you a little more excited now that you've seen a couple of games this season?
I actually am, and it's just a couple different ways. I mean, I don't know if you guys have Mosley back. I know you're on plan B at cornerback. That's always helpful. I do like Lenore. Norman's not bad, but that helps turn the table a little bit. Right now, what I'm more interested in is usually San Francisco just bludgeons us to death with the running game, and I am not an Elijah Mitchell fan. So if he's the lead guy going into that game, I give us a much better chance at it. Granted, if you get outside and you flank us with your blockers and we don't hold a hard edge like we haven't held a hard edge all season, then he's just going to run like he did against Detroit, and anybody can do that. Trenton Cannon can do that. But I think it's going to be a little bit closer. You guys don't seem like you've caught your flow yet. We definitely haven't caught ours either. So it's this weird thing where it's like this game could be great week 16, but in week 3, we're not there yet.
That's fair enough. And apparently, Kerryon Johnson and Jacquez Patrick do not scare Tyler at all.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Kerryon, other than that rookie here in Detroit, really hasn't done a whole lot of anything. And Jacquez Patrick. I mean, it's Jacquez Patrick. Yeah. You haven't really seen this dude with a touch in the NFL. You don't really know what he could be, what he couldn't be. The big thing is Trey Sermon at this point in time trending towards being a guy who could go, possibly could be out there. You talked about Elijah Mitchell. You're not a big fan of Mitchell. Do you feel less comfortable if Trey Sermon is the lead back going into Sunday?
It would be poetic justice for Shanahan to bench Sermon week 1, to play him behind Mitchell and Hasty. I do like Hasty. Week 2, give him 1 carry. It looks like he's going to be out for a good long time after one crazy, terrible hit. For him to come in week 3 as the only man standing and absolutely lay waste to my team, because from the start, I like Mostert. Don't get me wrong, but to think he could be a 60% snap share running back for over a month was insane. He made it 4 snaps. The lead back that San Francisco needs to play is Trey Sermon. He ran 1 play. The leverage was perfect. The run was perfect. And then he got speared in the back of the head. If he comes out and just lays waste to the Packers, it's going to be bittersweet, because I'm going to be looking at Shanahan like, I don't know how it took you so long to get here, and it's going to be against my team.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's fair. And to be honest, if Cutback Crew, if you're new, if you missed the first time we had Tyler Menting on to talk about the Trey Lance situation, he brought this up. We got into the Mostert Trey Sermon debate. He made these exact points. And so it's funny how we got to the start of the season. I was like, man, it's going to be interesting when we get Tyler back on to talk about the situation now, because the room has shifted so drastically in such a short amount of time. Well, now it's shifted back the other way in an instant. And now this is a thing, right, where with San Francisco, the running back room is in such disarray and such, just basically question marks everywhere. You don't really know what they're going to do. But Packers also defensively, Zadarius Smith going down. There's a lot of just shuffling going on with the defense right now. What's going on with Green Bay's defense? What problems are you seeing? How big of a loss is Zadarius Smith? And is there anything that the Packers can do to try and replace what he brings to that defense?
Simple answer, no. With the Packers defense right now, the positive that's going in the right direction is that Stokes is starting to, show his capabilities of taking over for King on the outside. I never worried about Shatter Sullivan in the middle. He's always been just a normal slot quality physical corner. The safeties and everything that we have we have 6 really quality players in the back 6 if King is pushed off by Stokes. And Stokes really has looked great so far. The problem with Green Bay is the same problem with Green Bay that's been the problem with Green Bay under the last couple coordinators, is that the 3-man front, without Zadarius out there, and even with Zadarius out there, we struggle to hold the edges and we struggle to flow the linebackers because we don't have the mobility. Campbell has played well, but he hasn't been stressed. Barnes has played well, but he hasn't been stressed. These are not sideline to sideline guys, and that opens up a lot of issues with the running game from that angle. As far as coverage, neither of them are great, even though Campbell did have an interception against Detroit. It's kind of Detroit. And that's really where the issue is. On the defensive line, we've started playing Slayton a little bit, but really when you take out Zadarius, it is Kenny Clark. And that's about it. The rest of it is rotational stuff around it. Nothing that's really, popping up to the surface and making a big impact. Preston Smith has been trending down since his first year with us. Rashawn Gary, we're still waiting on him to be the superstar he's supposed to be. And you take out ZD, and now you either have to go to a third guy or you have to rest those guys. And there's no making up for that.
Yeah, and that's a big question that I have is, can they get enough pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo? Because if Jimmy gets a clean pocket, he's going to be able to get the ball into the hands of the playmakers. If he doesn't have a clean pocket, he's just not as successful. It's that simple. But can he be successful with that defensive line? Are they going to be able to put enough pressure on him, or is he going to have a lot of clean pockets to operate?
I don't think the pressure is going to be the thing that can get to Jimmy in this game. One of the things that Green Bay kind of switched to later in the season, it's something that LaFleur understands, and something that happened actually to you guys last week, even though the defensive front was doing a great job of creating that pressure. Sorry, I've got a fly that's buzzing around my face right now. The pressure isn't going to be the thing. I mean, obviously last week you dealt with Hargrave, you dealt with Cox, you dealt with the edges that the Eagles have. We're not going to be able to present that. But what we do is we drop a little bit deeper into our zone and try and muck up that intermediate region. We try and keep you playing in front of us or attacking behind us. It's the same thing that we did to Goff. It's the same thing we did to Tannehill. And that's where Jimmy G could actually run into a little bit of problems. I don't think the pressure is going to be there, but if we can muck up the middle of the field and make it check downs or bombs, which he doesn't want to take, then we have a shot.
Which then, how are your corners tackling? Are your corners going to be able to tackle Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and those guys in space if the 49ers just decided to go more of a smoke screen route or something like that?
Still does not play in our advantage. Jair is a phenomenal corner, not a really big physical guy. Stokes, he's shown a lot of fire to him, but he's not a huge physical guy. There's not a lot of corners in this league who want to tackle Debo, and there's definitely not a ton that are going to do a great job of that against Ayuk either. We would need to have Savage and Amos really flying down in the box and putting a helmet on somebody.
That's fair. Yeah, that's definitely a thing to watch, and Cutback crew and 49ers fans should definitely be keeping an eye on. But look, the struggles defensively for the Packers, they've been there. It hasn't been great. It wasn't a great first half against Detroit, but they dialed it in. They figured it out in the second half, did the things that they were supposed to do, got themselves going. The thing that I found interesting was I saw a lot of 5-2 early in that game. San Francisco against the Eagles last week, a lot of 5-2 and some issues. Do you see that something that could translate over and carry over from week 2 into week 3 in terms of them trying to stop that outside zone run and being able to put a little bit more pressure in the box early on downs?
It's still a principle of setting that edge. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 5 guys or 6 guys on the front of the line, you have to set that edge. And that's the question with Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. You have to be able to set that edge. And if you go left, it's Trent Williams. I mean, set the edge with that guy. It's nearly impossible. So even if we do throw a little bit more of the 5-2, which I'm a big advocate for against especially stretch zone teams, it's still going to be one of those things where you're going to get cracked, you're going to get pushed up the field, and that edge is going to be broken. And once you have that boundary where you can bend, that asks a ton of the linebackers and a ton of the safeties as far as getting through that traffic.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And we did see a lot of it against Philly, and I expect to see it pretty much every week after this until the 49ers prove that they can consistently beat it. But they just went to the sweeps. They just went outside, let the running backs eventually get vertical and get upfield. And you talked about your interior linebackers. Do you think Barnes and those guys can get out there and make those plays on those sweeps?
No, you guys have been running a lot of that, what I call Stanford toss, because they used to do it a ton with Bryce Love. And yeah, it's the problem with it is not only do you have to get over, but you have to work over the linemen to get there as well. And once you get that stretch going, now the guard in the center or the guard in the other guard, they're going to climb to the second level. They're going to get the hands on these guys. They're going to have to get off of that block and range. And once you pick a shoulder, the running back picks the other shoulder. It's kind of one of those, you're in deep trouble unless you can get an extra body and extra numbers up to find that guy. So that's where it's one of those things where I kind of hope that we do have one high. We really pack the middle with 7, 6, and just try and keep that line so that Amos can be the extra number who comes in to finish that off.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, that's good to be definitely a thing to watch, because I think after this last week in week 2, and I agree, it's going to be something the Niners have to deal with and have to see. But offensively, Green Bay, week 1. Little concerning, little iffy. Questions about Rodgers. I mean, look, we would bring it up. We'd talk about it here a little bit, and a lot of the cutback crew were like, "Oh, Rodgers has phoned it in. This guy, he doesn't want to be here anymore. He's done." What are you seeing from Aaron Rodgers? Is that what you're getting from the Aaron Rodgers performance, or has it just been sort of early on of the year? He didn't play a lot in the preseason, working out some kinks and just getting comfortable without Bakhtiari on the line, and potentially now no Elton, correct?
Yeah.
No Elton out there in space either. He's questionable right now, I believe.
He better play. Rodgers, it's kind of a tale of two things. You have Aaron Rodgers, who's still Aaron Rodgers when he's throwing that ball. Like the throw to Adams, the throw to Tunyon against the Lions, they'll immaculate. Like you can't grade higher than the throws that he made on those. The problem is that you guys have kind of actually been throwing a little bit more 5 front yourself and throwing a little more pressure. At least you did against Hurts. That's something we don't like. And right now we have 3 kids in the middle where we have Myers, we have Newman, and we have Runyon, who are first or second year players. And they're kind of playing with those rookie legs where they don't have the anchor that you want to see them have. And then also because of the stunts and everything that's coming along with it, we've been picking that up very poorly on the communication. It's just a lot of guys in a lot of new positions and not learning how to handle all those stunts and transitions. And when those have gotten pressure, when those have gotten a push, or when those have come around the edge, that's when you see Rodgers kind of look old. And I hate to say it, but it's one of those things where you see him and you go, okay, here's pressure. Why is he looking for a soft spot to lay down on? He's just trying not to take that big hit. And I mean, it's not something we've seen him take a lot, but it's just right on this situation here where now he's coming in with a little more rust. It's easier to be more critical after the Saints game, but the pressure bothered him. And pressure has always been something that's bothered the LaFleur offense. So with extra bodies, with a couple twists, I'm terrified of Armstead in the middle. I mean, Armstead, Kinlaw in the middle with those 3 kids is going to be an adventure. So I think Rodgers is Rodgers still. I just worry that the willingness to take that hit to make the play is on layaway right now.
And what happens if Jenkins is out? What happens if he's not able to go on Sunday night? Who is going to fill in for him, and what can they do to kind of help out? Do they have to chip? Do they have to, go a lot of max protect? What do they got to do to make sure that Nick Bosa and D Ford don't eat out there on Sunday night?
Okay. Our normal stance on that has been to switch Billy Turner over to left tackle, which would probably kick Newman back out to right tackle. So we would be moving 3 different people on the line to get that covered. At that point in time, I don't really know. Mercedes Lewis has to be into the game because we have to play more two tight end looks. We're going to have to get Tunyon and Mercedes in a lot. It's going to take somebody out of the slot, take somebody off of the boundary, allow you guys to condense the defense a little bit. On top of that, there's just going to have to be a lot of Daphne, a lot of Mercedes, and a lot of Tunyon just trying to play more of an Arthur Smith style offense with 60-70% tight end or 160-170% tight end snaps, just to be able to hold up against that, because that's the deal breaker. There's two things against San Francisco. It's that outside run game with us being able to not hold that edge and pursue, and it's your defensive line. When your defensive line is right, we have serious issues against you guys for that.
I think that's fair, because that was the big thing that I saw this weekend. The last 2 weekends, right? The first 2 weeks. Number one is Armstead's level of play on the interior on pass rush downs has been absolutely phenomenal for these first 2 weeks. People forgot because you didn't get to see him operate on the interior last season. He basically was resigned to being out on the edge on pass rush downs where he's not as successful because he's not as quick. And then the other one has been Katavius Street. Through the first 2 weeks, Street has looked fan-freaking-tastic, and he blew up a couple of big run opportunities. This is one of the things that I think is going to be the key to this game is how the interior of that Packers O-line kind of holds up against these D tackles for the 49ers. Because when the Niners pressure got up front against the Eagles, they were able to get in. The only concern I have is, again, Rodgers' mobility, Rodgers' ability to escape. Our DN sometimes taking poor angles. Do you foresee a situation in which the Packers try and move the pocket, get Rodgers out a little bit and moving, and create some opportunities to take advantage of these younger DBs?
They're going to have to. They're going to have to do everything in their power to get away from putting him in a stationary position. The only problem is that, you guys have beat the Rams how many times? And I know Goff isn't extremely mobile, but McVay knows how to move the pocket too. And once we start moving the pocket, what happens? Well, that defensive end comes straight downhill at the quarterback. Now you can't do the boot game. Now you have to get away from that. One of the things that we've had success with in the past is we run a lot of tight bunches with our offense. We bring everybody in close just to disrupt the pass rush lanes of the defensive ends, just so that we can get a little bit more attention to the interior. It's going to have to be schemed. I mean, if Elton doesn't play, it's going to absolutely have to be.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the bunch set does kind of mess up the wide nine a little bit with the defensive ends. We've seen it now. I mean, at both weeks, they've been chipping Bosa. They've been making sure they're chipping him and causing him a little bit of issues off the edge. Because when he's able to come free, he's still Nick Bosa. So I'm wondering, can the Packers get the run game? And can they use that sort of bunch set to help them get the outside edge against the 49ers?
It's possible. It's one of those things where, that just hasn't been how this game has gone. Like, basically the last couple times, except for the one where you guys, started Mullins and Mullins was shell-shocked. It's been one of those where we kind of get the itchy trigger finger, where we want to, we realize you guys are possessing the ball, so we want to match points, and we get away from staying on balance, staying in this, like, battle it out with the run game style. We can get outside. I mean, we have Lazard, we have Adams, we have a bunch of different wide receivers who actually do block quite well. It would have to take Cobb off the field, but that's no big deal anyway. But to say that we're just going to come out and, establish the run and everything, you guys have a lot more range. You guys have the safeties who can come downhill. That's not exactly our thing. So I don't expect it to be a pound the ball both ways, because while we have a quarterback who moves, the times I've seen it with San Francisco where it became a real big issue is when the quarterback's actually a runner. It's Kyler. Hurts is actually an obligation for the defense. Rodgers, he could pull one and run a couple times, but it's not going to be 10, 12 carries where you have to take it seriously.
That's fair. That's fair. That's the reality of the situation. That's not what his strength is, and that's not his go-to. Is there one area offensively that you truly believe the Packers have an edge that they could take advantage of San Francisco with?
Is Greenlaw playing?
No.
Okay. So basically we need to hope that we can get you guys, if you are in pressure, that we're going to keep Max Protect in, keep Mercedes Lewis in, and we're just going to find one of your corners and hope that you don't have a double or triple on Devante Adams, and we're going to go straight at him every time. Because, I mean, as much as Lenore's played well, he got beat a couple times versus Philly. There were a couple that even Hurts missed where it was there. I see it very much so being a game plan where Green Bay, we know it's Jones or the running game, it's Adams, and then you mix in some Tunyon. And we're going to try and dial up everything to go through Devante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. And if you guys don't double him or bracket him or spy an extra guy on him, then that's your problem. And that could be the reason why that this thing gets a little bit closer.
Yeah, I would guess they're going to go ahead and try to take away Devante Adams and make everyone else beat him.
Yeah. I think that might be the smart thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, I mean, Norman played admirably. I mean, overall, watching his film, I thought he did pretty good, especially for, coming off the street a couple weeks ago. But I don't want to see him out on an island against Devante Adams for sure. But I think that the one advantage that we have is that safeties, they can play kind of everywhere. They can play. We have a left and right safety. We don't have a strong and a free. These guys can kind of do whatever we need them to do. So yeah, Jimmy Ward over the top of Devante would be kind of something I would expect late in this game, in this game, and especially a lot of too high safety looks, which they ran pretty much most of the time against the Eagles.
Yeah, and I mean, with Adams, going back to that real quick. Sorry, I was going to make a comment about Norman. I think a lot of people with Norman really got that Washington days ingrained in their brain of who he is. And then he went over to Buffalo where he got to go back to Sean McDermott. And he actually had a solid year when he was out there. And I think it was one of those things where it's like the Carolina scheme fit him. The Washington scheme did not. The Buffalo did. And now he's in San Francisco, which is another kind of comfortable scheme fit for him. So playing admirably doesn't really surprise me with him because this is where his home is supposed to be. As far as the pressure you guys bring, that's given us problems. And if you do have the double with Ward over the top, he's basically another cornerback out there. So whatever you do to disrupt Adams, I expect it. We should expect it. And that's the one thing where it's like that can go our way, but that's also something
Fair. I mean, it's accurate. Yeah. It's not wrong. Defensively, Eric Stokes, he brought it up, and I wanted to go back to it because it looked like there was a flip-flop going on, especially in Detroit. You had King sometimes out on the perimeter, especially when Cephas was out there, and then a lot of times in the red zone, in very crucial situations, third downs, third and longs, and things of that nature, Stokes came in and was your guy out there in space operating on the edge, and King was moving a little bit into the inside at times. Is that what you can expect to see going forward if you're a Packers fan or even a 49ers fan looking at this game? More Stokes on the outside, covering out in space on the perimeter, King moving to the interior? Or is that something that they're just doing on certain downs and situations and having King kind of follow a slot guy around or a guy that maybe play on the outside and may move in on the interior on certain pass downs?
Going forward, I mean, obviously the coaches are going to do what the coaches are going to do. When Eric Stokes was drafted, he was one of the corners that I really liked in that range. I was hoping that he would get to us, and even though most people thought it was a reach, I was a big fan of his. King has just earned so much bad blood in Green Bay. Just the inconsistency. The guy is absolutely talented as all get out, but he just makes these mental mistakes, these tackling mistakes, and all these other little issues. And I think if you look at where Green Bay is right now with Stokes, he's slowly just grabbing that role. That's going to be his. And that's going to put the question between Sullivan and King, who's going to be more interior. We used to play Josh Jackson as this fourth corner guy who would cover tight ends 1v1 because of his size and his length. I really feel like that's where King's actually gravitating towards right now. He's going to be that other corner who's like, we'll move him inside because you don't play three corners outside. That the fourth corner is going to play inside. They trust him there. They trust Jair, of course, with anything. And the only question about keeping him outside is if you're moving Jair inside to deal with something that's a bigger issue.
And they had a little bit of coverage breakdowns this last week. Do you have any concerns about, kind of the communication between those guys on the outside, especially with Stokes coming in, just figuring it out and making sure they're in the right spots, especially with the way that Kyle can kind of confuse things up and scheme things up.
If we're doing the man coverage and the swaps, that has been an issue with us for years. As far as any bunch stack, anything like that, if we're in man, the swap calls have been just an adventure. I don't actually have a concern with it because it's kind of like we've set a baseline and it can only go up from there. So it was always a concern, but now it's actually a little bit better because I trust Stokes. King has space cadetted all the time on those. And I mean, if we do decide we're going to man you guys up, of course Shanahan's going to pick people off. Of course Shanahan's going to open up those matchups in that situation. Everybody who sees man does that, and Shanahan's one of the best at it that there is.
Fair.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good schemer.
Do you think there's I want to ask you about Trey Lance. Do you think there's any avenue where Trey Lance has a specific matchup that Kyle Shanahan would like to exploit this week?
Well, with us, you never know. We hate running quarterbacks. We've hated running quarterbacks since you had Kaepernick. We will continue to hate running quarterbacks till the end of time. So if he wants to pull out some gadgets and some stuff, then he can very much so do that. I don't like that particularly, not as a fan, but as a person who loves quarterbacks. I do not like when coaches do that stuff. I don't think it's just the best way to get your star franchise quarterback hit 3 out of 4 plays in the first game. Wasn't that how it went?
Something like that.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like getting my quarterback hit. So, I mean, I'm good with quarterback runs and everything and gadgets and, the illusion that he's a threat, but I don't like him being the bulldozer. So could it happen against Green Bay? Absolutely. It really shouldn't need to. If the offense really does bog down as far as the running game goes, that would be something to come out and run 15 plays in a row and make sure that we don't win that game. So
that was my thing. We were joking. Ant and I were joking about this the other day. And, when all the injuries were piling up, and I was like, man, is there any way now with all of these injuries, you're just depleted at the running back position. You don't have like a single guy you want to go with. Would this be the game where Kyle's like, all right, well, time for these pack. We got to put these situations in, these RPOs in, these read options, so we have another running threat that the Packers are trying to focus and deal with. It very well could be the case. It could happen. The other thing, though, is George Kittle has not had a lot of touches through the first 2 weeks. Do you sit there knowing that is the case, have a sneaky suspicion that George Kittle is going to be heavy on the docket in week 3? And if that were the case, what can Green Bay do?
We can go quarters, and we can put Amos on him and pray. Our linebackers can't cover him. Our linebackers have no chance in covering him. So, I mean, that would be your option where you go with 6 DBs and you put Kevin King on him and try and do the length game on that. But the same problem is when you put those 6 DBs out there, you're going to get blown off the field in the run game because there's no way Kevin King's going to hold up to the block of Juice or Kittle coming at him. So, tight ends. Hawkinson got us pretty good, and Kittle could be the guy. I mean, unless you guys want to keep throwing it to Deebo, 35 times a game until he breaks down too.
Prefer not. Prefer not. And this is the thing, though. It's been funny. Ant and I have been talking about this. We went from a team that really, for a long time, relied heavy on Kittle. Kittle got a lot of things going. Kittle was kind of the security blanket, and the tone shifted this year. Kittle's not really been utilized that much in the pass game. They've had some situations and some times where they've gone to him, but it's been heavy Deebo, and then at other times, a sprinkling in a Sherfield, a sprinkling in of Sanu, sprinkling in Jawan Jennings now getting into the pass game. Jawan Jennings having as many receptions as Brandon Ayuk through 2 weeks. Does that surprise you at all?
Does not surprise me at all. I'll tell you what, all offseason, people were sitting there just beating the drum. Brandon Ayuk is going to be an absolute superstar. Take him early in your fantasy football drafts. And I'm like, if you know anything about Shanahan, that is not what's going to happen. That's not how this offense is built. But what he's done so far is stunning. There is no way anyone could have predicted how horrible of a start this would have been for him. He's too good of a player to not get snaps over Sanu, over I mean, I understand Juwan for the blocking aspect of it. I understand Sherfield having his role because the Kendrick Bourne role existed anyway. But to play Mohamed Sanu instead of Ayuk, like, that's just giving everybody a gift. I mean, I don't want to say it any other way. It's just, he's a really good player, and Mohamed Sanu has no business. Like, the quote was, he needs to be a lot better than the people behind him. No, he doesn't, Kyle. He needs to be better than the people behind him. And there is no day on no planet that Mohamed Sanu is a better player than Brandon Ayuk.
I'm not going to argue.
No, there's no argument to be made. I've seen a couple people talking about how, well, in those situations they need their big body. That's why Sanu's out there, and Sherfield's just outplayed. And I'm like, you don't need necessarily the big body. Ayuk can go up in space and make the big catch as well. We've seen him do that before. It's just interesting to see what's going on. It's always nice getting someone else's, an outside fan's perspective on what's going on with the 49ers wide receiver room, because I can't make heads or tails of it.
Doghouse.
Maybe it is doghouse, man. I hope to God not, but maybe it is.
I watched this watched camp unfolding, and I'm just like, he's going to keep Sanu on this team. Sherfield's playing awesome. He deserves the Kendrick Bourne role. I hear the blocking stuff about Jennings. Yes, I agree. That's a small role. But I'm like, he's going to keep Sanu, and he's going to play Sanu. Why? And that's exactly where we are so far.
I guess you don't enjoy pass interferences in the end zone, because that's what Sanu's brought us.
Crafty, savvy vet.
Yeah.
Getting those PIs in the end zone and extending drives.
He's great at running picks for other people to get open. Yeah, great.
100%. You're not wrong. He was a big part of Juwan Jennings' touchdown.
And what? He freed him up big time on that.
Kittle drawing double coverage is what freed up Juwan
Actually,
Jennings.
It was triple coverage, and there was 3 guys over the top. There's 3 guys bracketing there. Oh, man.
Can we take a second to talk about Elijah Mitchell's big touchdown run where Kittle pancaked 2 Lions to clear that whole way for him?
Yes.
That's where it frustrates me, because I'm sitting here like, I was watching this running back room, and I watched after the Detroit game, and people were like, oh, Elijah Mitchell, next superstar. I watched the tape on it, and I literally went, this is Tevin Coleman. I am flag planting right now that there is no way Shanahan can see this and continue down this road. And yet.
Hey, look, Kittle has been collecting souls, essentially, since the first snap of week 1. It's been nonstop. He's got more pancake blocks than I can even fathom right now. The O-line has been just playing phenomenally. The addition of Alex Mack has really shored up the 49ers O-line. And, we've jokingly made the comments that it's Kyle Shanahan run game, right? You can just plug a body in there and you'll be A-okay. Do you feel that that's the case? Do you think that if there is no Mitchell, there's no Sermon, that the Niners can just grab Joe Schmo, Kerryon Johnson, Trenton Cannon, Chris Thompson off the practice squad? Hasn't seen a field in 2 years. Do you think the run game will still be fine if those are the names heading into Sunday?
You guys do remember that Alfred Morris, the ghost of Alfred Morris, ran for 4 yards a carry. That Matt Breida, who has been a nobody everywhere else, ran for 5 yards a carry. Yeah, you can plug in just about anybody and get 4 to 5 yards a carry. You had Jerick McKinnon on one leg last year, and he still averaged 4 yards a carry.
And people forget that because it didn't feel like he averaged 4 yards a carry, but he would break 1 or 2 ridiculously long ones and then get 2.5, 3 yards a carry everywhere else. And there's your 4 yards a carry.
I mean, where the problem comes in is you go into run game efficiency against pass plays, and there's a whole lot of analytics on it. And you don't want to average under 4.5 yards because that's where the whole analytics starts tipping you away from you should never run. So when you do have these lesser backs, yes, you're going to be closer to that 3.6, 4.2, depending on the matchup yards. Against Green Bay, probably 4.2 if you run Cannon all day. But, I mean, that's where it tips because Shanahan running backs, Mossert, 5 yards a carry. Breida, 5 yards a carry. Jeff Wilson, 4.8 yards a carry. Like, this is just what it happens. And once you get past that 4.5, then those numbers start reversing. Because if you get 4.5 to or 4.8 to 5 yards a carry, you run twice, you have a first down. There's room for error. So, I mean, yeah, so you can still do it with Joe Schmo. But it's a totally different animal as far as the efficiency of the whole offense in general. when you have Elijah Mitchell taking 17 for 42.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
Definitely. Look, man, this was a lot of fun. This is a great conversation. We got a lot of good insight into Green Bay. If you have to give a score prediction, Tyler, what's your score prediction? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I know Vegas has the total on it kind of high.
I forget what it was, but
I think it was like 48, 49. I could be wrong. I really just kind of glanced at it. Honestly, I do expect this to be a close game, as negative and pessimistic as I am. It is just the youth and inexperience in the secondary, the turnstiles that you guys have kind of had to go through early. It's the running backs that you guys might not be able to keep it so on pace as much as typical. There's no way we slow you down too much. So I'm giving you 27, 23.
That is absolutely crazy because that's the exact score I was going to go with. Exact score. That is amazing.
27-20. You guys are like synced
Great
in.
minds.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Great minds.
I was literally sitting here thinking about it, and he just lays it out. I was like, wow.
Well, it's
impressive.
It's a good thing Lock It Up was before this,
Yeah,
and now
right.
your prediction is spoiled. No, this is great, man. That's good. That's a fair score. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. And again, Tyler, let everyone know where they can find you and where they can find your stuff.
You can find me on Twitter. We've been really active on Twitter. We do put out gambling as far as everything every week. Had a bad week last week, great week 1. So we're kind of, early season low. You can find me on Twitter at Football Unlocked. We also have a YouTube channel at it's Football Unlocked. Haven't been very active. I've been, in fact, a little bit lazy with it for the last couple months, but we are going to get back into it pretty soon and start talking a little bit more of matchups in between games and just kind of figuring out where we are in this season, because it's really easy to look at 2-3 weeks and just like the world is burning down and everything's wrong. But these things really do correct over the course of the season. So it's looking at the matchups that they've seen and why it's caused the optics of the situation that we're panicking to see.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. Make sure you go check that out over there if you're interested in the gambling stuff, the over-unders, the odds, point spreads. Check them out at Football Unlocked. Everything will be in the description down below. Tyler, man, thank you again for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And it's a standing reservation. Whenever you want to come back on, you just let us know.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Trey Lance when he gets his start.
I love it.
I like it a lot. Book it. You count on it, man. Thank you.
All right, sounds good.
Well, that was really fun, Alex. I enjoyed it. Always, yeah.
Always is with Tyler. Look, the insight that he has, he's got a coaching background as well, like us. So real knowledgeable of the game, understands what's going on, and knows Green Bay like the back of his hand. He understands the changes they've made there, right? The new defensive coordinator there, a lot of things shifting, moving parts. Darius Smith being out, no Bakhtiari potentially now, right? No Elton Jenkins out there on the outside, which means problems for the Packers offensive line, which means opportunities for the gold rush to shine and to strike gold every time they basically put pressure on the quarterback, which could be every snap.
Yeah, when I heard about Jenkins' possible ankle injury, my eyes got big because you realize that Nick Bosa and those guys are going to have opportunities to be successful. And the way that Tyler talked about all the movement and everybody that's going to be moving around if there's this injury, they're going to move the right tackle to left tackle. They're going to move a guard to right tackle. So much movement is good for the 49ers. They're already very successful on the inside with that interior defensive line. And the fact they'll be able to take advantage of this offensive line, which is a completely young, new offensive line with Josh Myers pulling the trigger now instead of Corey Linsley. So it is a different world for Green Bay. They've went out and got younger players, different players for this offensive line. Will it be the same results, though? Will the defensive line for the 49ers, garner the same results that they have in that NFC Championship game? I'm going to ignore last year's game, the Thursday night game. Basically everyone was out, and it was really crazy. It was like the 49ers JV roster showed up to play, and it just didn't go well. But I think I am interested to watch this matchup. Yeah,
there was no Brandon Ayuk the last time he played. Richie James was wide receiver 1 for the 49ers. Richie James isn't even on the roster anymore.
It's true.
So the weapons for the 49ers have changed. They've shifted dramatically. You have a healthy George Kittle, a healthy Deebo Samuel, Trent Sherfield coming in and operating the Kendrick Bourne role that Tyler talked about, and that being a thing in this offense, and Sherfield now operating it at a much higher clip and a much higher rate. The only question now remains, is Brandon Ayuk not going to be in the doghouse? Is Brandon Ayuk going to be on the field? Is Brandon Ayuk going to be an actual weapon that Kyle Shanahan wants to use? Or is he fine just making him another cog in the wheel? That's going to be a very interesting storyline here in week 3.
He's off the doghouse. He was moseying around the yard last week, and now he's got his nose right firmly at the doggy door, ready to come into the house.
I like it.
I think that he's going to make some plays in this game. I think there are opportunities for him to make plays in this game. With the way the teams are going to have to commit defenders to Deebo Samuel, you already know what George Kittle can do. They're going to, put it on Brandon Ayuk to make plays. Him and Trent Sherfield are going to have to step up in a big way, and they can. And I think Ayuk is going to answer the call, and he's going to get it done. I think he's finally fully healthy and ready to roll. And I think that it did do a good, some of the statements and comments that have been made have been good for Ayuk, and I think it's going to be good for him overall. And I expect him to go out there and have a very good game and a very good season. Because, Richie James did cause some issues last year. Brandon Ayuk can cause even more issues because he's a better player.
Much better player, significantly better player. I don't know if I will take the chance on him in fantasy this week, but if he does put up a lot of points, I'll be happy knowing that he's on my bench, ready to go, right? Willing to go for the rest of my fantasy season. But look, it's going to be exciting. There's a lot of things for the 49ers to take advantage of with this Green Bay team, whether that's their O-line, whether that's the linebacker play, George Kittle, or the run game. The big questions will obviously just be the running back stuff like we talked about. I thought it was very interesting. Big fan of Tasty Hasty. Not so big of a fan of Elijah Mitchell. 49ers fans, probably not in that same category. A lot of 49ers fans didn't even think JaMycal Hasty was going to be a guy who made the active 53-man roster until we got out of about that third week of the preseason, third week of the preseason, not fourth, but that third week of the preseason in which he kind of took over for Gallman and really solidified himself as that guy, right? That next back in the backfield who's going to bring up the rear. Yes, he's going to be missing some time, but when we get him back, hopefully we'll be able to continue making the steps forward that he needs to make. But it's going to be interesting to see what this running back room shapes out to the rest of this week. Is Elijah Mitchell going to be good to go? Is Trey Sermon going to be healthy? Right. Jacquez Patrick active. He's going to be ready to go. Are they going to bring up somebody else? I know they just signed Chris Thompson in the practice squad as well. So a lot of questions, a lot of moving parts. The running back room in flux. But as Tyler mentioned, talked about the ghost of Alfred Morris. You can pretty much put just about anybody back there, and Kyle's going to find a way to scheme them and get them opportunities to make big plays.
Yeah, you had Orlandis Gary, you had Mike Anderson. All these guys, were running backs for Denver.
Man, the Mike Anderson
those were all guys that could get it done. The 49ers can plug and play a lot of guys. At what level, though? At what level are these guys going to be able to execute? Well, it's all going to be predetermined by this offensive line and these tight ends. Now, one thing I will say is I am a fan of Elijah Mitchell. I like the way he runs. I like the forward lean. I like the vision. I like the one cut and go. I think he fits Kyle Shanahan's system, and I've seen enough out of him vision-wise where I believe he actually has better vision than JaMycal Hasty. JaMycal Hasty is a dynamic runner, but he's a different kind of runner than Elijah Mitchell. There's a place for both of them on this roster, and the fact that they're a little bit different, I think, adds extra elements to this team. But right now, we got to hope that Elijah Mitchell is ready to go for this game, that he's able to carry the load. And we really should hope that Trey Sermon is as well. If not, then what we're going to have is we're going to have a makeshift group of guys that are going to be ragtag out there to get it done. And we're going to have to expect the Suicide Squad to go out there and take care of business for the 49ers. I think that Kyle Shanahan knows what he has to do. He will manufacture some offense. He will use receivers to run some fly sweeps. He'll get some smoke screens, which Tyler Menting said the corners aren't good tacklers. That's something you can take advantage of. We know Stokes isn't. He's not physical at all.
No.
So there's opportunities for the 49ers. There's opportunities for these receivers to have big games. Opportunities for George Kittle where there's mismatch issues. So 49ers just got to take advantage of it. And one of the ways to do it is make sure you get outside on Preston Smith and outside on Gary as well, Rashawn Gary. Because Rashawn Gary was playing interior defensive line not too long ago. Now he's playing an outside linebacker position. There's a speed element there that he's missing. And if these offensive tackles and George Kittle can handle him out in space, the 49ers are going to have opportunities to make plays on the outside and on the edge. When you have guys like Trenton Cannon and those guys, they can definitely get out there because 4.4 speed is still 4.4 speed.
You can't teach it, Ant. Surprisingly, you can't teach that. I'm stunned. I wish you could have because, I would have liked to have been a smidge faster playing in my playing days, right? I would have loved that, to have had that little bit of extra speed. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. They're definitely makeshift there defensively with some of the stuff that they're doing, especially with Zadarius Smith now being done for the year. What is it going to look like? Is there going to be avenues for the 49ers to attack in the run game with this makeshift group? Possibly. The reason why? It'll be this O-line. It'll be the front five. It'll be George Kittle, the addition there, and Kyle Juszczyk, obviously. The things that this group of 7 can get done in this run game can make a lot of things easy for a running back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Tyler talked about, you brought up the 5-2, and Tyler talked about that's the way to stop the outside zone. If you watch our film breakdown on Patreon, you know that that's what the Eagles try to do.
Yep.
And they were able to kind of, it wasn't that it was a bad scheme that Kyle Shanahan came up with. It was the execution wasn't there. Well, guess what? There's no Brendan Graham. There's no Hargraves. There's none of those guys. There's no Fletcher Cox. So the 49ers are going to be able to run the exact same things if the Green Bay tries, and they're going to be able to execute it at a better level. Laken Tomlinson will be able to anchor down. It's not going to be Brendan Graham. So I think that there are opportunities for the 49ers in the run game, both vertically and on the outside. And I think that is the key advantage that the 49ers have over Green Bay, which once you have to commit Amos and those safeties to the box, that's going to give the 49ers opportunities down the field to strike. And then that's when you can see big plays from Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle.
And that's what you've seen when the Niners have been healthy. That's what you've seen. Think back to George Kittle on a broken frickin' ankle, the fractured ankle against Green Bay not too long ago, in the not so distant past in 2019. Niners running all over him in that prime time game on 19. I think it was Sunday night as well. That one was as well. Sunday night game, running all over him there. Not to the extent that most ran in the NFC Championship game, but still running all over him. And they were really committed down in the box, play action, get a little half boot, throwing across the field, right, to George Kittle deep in space. If the run game can get going, this can open up a lot of things and opportunities to attack down the seam and stay away from potentially outside the numbers, which Tyler talked about being an issue. It's going to have to rely on that, though. If the Niners want to be able to attack down the field vertically, Tyler talked about they're going to sit back, try and keep everything right. You're either going to take shots underneath and check down, or you're going to take shots deep because they're going to try and compress and take away the middle of the field where Jimmy's strength is. That's a smart thing. That's a smart plan. However, if you do that, and that's the strategy, that also leaves opportunities to bring in a guy like Trey Lance and take those deep shots. Okay, you want to take away the middle of the field, that's fine. We'll bring Trey in. We'll get some run looks going, some run fits. And when you try and take away the middle of the field and we bring Trey in on those packages and situations, maybe we just take a shot downfield and see what happens.
Well, when you muck up the middle of the field, you leave yourself vulnerable to the run game.
That too.
And then you leave yourself vulnerable to a horizontal passing game. So you get the ball out quick to these guys in space and make them make a guy miss and make plays. So the 49ers will do a similar thing to what they did against the Eagles, except there's not the pass rush that, Green Bay doesn't have the pass rush the Eagles have. So you're less worried about that, which gives Jimmy Garoppolo opportunities. If they want to take the deep away ball away, Jimmy Garoppolo will operate underneath. And as long as Jimmy is a little more accurate than he was last week, there are opportunities for the 49ers to just continuously move the ball. If you want drives that are 12, 13 plays to happen for San Francisco continuously, then run that defense. I think that they are a little bit different than Green Bay as far as the Eagles were different from Green Bay. So I think there are opportunities to take advantage of. And I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see the horizontal offense and if you don't see Trey Lance on some quarterback powers. I'm calling it right now. I think that happens. That is here. That is something that the 49ers are able to run. And I also think about the possibility of Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary having to worry about a read option with Trey Lance in there. Could be something to watch because those guys athletically don't have the athleticism to be able to stay with a guy like him.
That's right. That's right. And Cutback Crew, let us know what you thought about this. Know your opponent down below. Don't forget to hop over to Football Unlocked on YouTube or at Football Unlocked on Twitter. Show Tyler some love. Give him that follow. Give him that subscribe notification bell.
Great follow on Twitter.
He's a wonderful follow on Twitter.
Yeah.
A lot of fun stuff and some spicy takes, which you'll love to see.
And he backs down from no one, especially in 49er land.
I love it. I love it when he's backing down from nobody in 49er land.
Yeah.
Taking some shots at Thanos and some other people. It's good stuff. It's a good time on Twitter. It's also a good time over at Football Unlocked, so go check that out as well. Cutback Crew, though, this was a lot of fun. A lot of great things. Is this going to go the way of the 49ers, like Ant and Tyler said, with that score prediction, 28-23 or 27-23 San Francisco? Or is it going to be like the Madden simulation that you watched earlier today? If you missed that, go check it out, because the Madden simulation has the 49ers getting absolutely mollywopped 24-7. Which way is this game actually going to go? We don't have to wait too much longer to find out. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you're checking out all the stuff here on the 49ers Cutback. A lot of content for you and growing each and every day.
Yes, if you did not watch the videos that came out today, you need to go back and watch them. There's a lot of great stuff. And if you haven't been on Patreon, go hop over there. There's video breakdowns that you can get into. Or you can go 49ers Cutback in time and relive some of the great moments in 49ers history. There's also a lot of other good stuff like Big Yikes, where we go over some fun takes. So just go and check it out, if that's something you're interested in doing. But there's always a lot of content right here on YouTube that you can enjoy, and also on the traditional platforms, which once again is exploding beyond what I could even believe. So thank you to everyone that's listening that way, watching on YouTube, or has joined us as a member on YouTube or on Patreon. We really do appreciate it.
We do. We can't thank you enough. No matter which way you choose to engage with the Cutback crew, it's a good time. It's a lot of fun, and it supports the channel. It gets us out there, and it pumps this out to more and more of the faithful, more and more of just football fans that can come enjoy good, fun talk, encouraging talk. And also, if you're an opponent, get to come in, learn a little bit about the Niners, learn a little bit about who you're facing, and really be dialed in for Sunday. And that's the key. Being dialed in, knowing what to expect, and knowing who you're facing. Good time, always a fun one, always good to get to know who you're facing.
100%. I enjoy it. I love that the first part of the week is talking about the previous game, and the second part is getting into the team you're about to play, and know your opponent is one of those big ways, because you get to hear it, from the mouth of somebody that really understands their football team and knows what strengths and weaknesses are. And when you get guys that are completely transparent about those and honest about those, you get honest talks. And then you know what to look for when you're watching the game. You know what reads you're supposed to be looking at and what players are going to make plays. I love it. It's exciting.
It's always exciting. It's always a good time. Be in the know. Join the Cutback crew today. And until the next one, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.